Welcome back my channel X Coins Hub. The year was 1996. In the quiet hum of the U.S. Mint's vast mechanical arms, coins were being struck with relentless rhythm. Among the billions of pieces produced that year, the Jefferson nickel continued its long-standing presence in American pockets and purses. Since its introduction in 1938, the coin had carried the solemn portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, and the classical image of Monticello on the reverse. By 1996, most Americans gave it little more than a glance, a familiar, almost invisible presence in the clatter of daily transactions. But buried in this ocean of uniformity was a small anomaly, one that would only reveal itself years later through patience, scrutiny, and a collector's trained eye. The Denver Mint that year, thousands of dies were used to strike coins that looked virtually identical to the public. But as every coin enthusiast knows, the die itself is vulnerable, subject to erosion, misalignment, and the tiniest of human errors. One of those errors, undetected in the haste of mass production, would produce a limited run of nickels that bore an imperfection so minor it escaped the mint's quality control altogether. But to the right person, this imperfection would become a portal to value, rarity, and curiosity. That person was a retired train engineer named Martin Brewer, who had spent most of his adult life watching the world go by from behind a locomotive window. In retirement, he found peace in collecting, particularly Jefferson nickels. There was something about the enduring stoicism of Jefferson's face and the neoclassical symmetry of Monticello that felt timeless to Martin. His evenings were spent hunched over a desk with a loupe in one hand and a desk lamp casting a narrow glow on hundreds of nickels sorted by year, mint mark, and grade. In the summer of 2009, Martin acquired a small lot of uncirculated 1996 D Jefferson nickels from a local estate sale. They had been stored in plastic rolls, forgotten in the back of a metal filing cabinet. He began inspecting them one by one, not expecting much, until one coin caught his attention. The coin seemed crisp, the strike strong, but there was something off in the way the steps of Monticello were defined. What should have been clean and sharp lines appeared doubled, not blurred by wear but clearly struck that way. He leaned in, adjusting his loupe. Then he saw it again on the letters of Monticello, and 5 cents! A clear doubling. Not random, not damage. A real double die. His heart raced, the way it only does for collectors when a coin talks back. He examined the obverse. Jefferson's profile was sharp, but even there, a faint doubling on his eye and the edge of his ponytail betrayed the same flaw. Martin knew what he had wasn't common. He placed it in a 2x2 holder and began researching what he'd found. There was little mention of a 1996 D Jefferson nickel with such a doubling. While earlier decades were rich in well-documented double dies, the 1990s remained quiet, mostly overlooked. But Martin had found a ghost, a mistake unrecorded, undocumented, and possibly extremely rare. He sent the coin to a well-respected grading service. Weeks passed before he received it back, slabbed and certified as a 1996 D double die reverse Jefferson nickel, graded MS 65 full steps. The designation stunned even the graders. It was one of only a handful ever seen, and the first they had certified at that grade with clear doubling and full architectural detail on Monticello. Word spread quickly among Jefferson specialists. Collectors who had once ignored the 1996 issue began hunting through rolls and mint sets, hoping to spot the same doubling. A few more were eventually found, but the number remained minuscule. Most of the examples lacked full steps, or suffered from bag marks and surface discoloration. Martin's coin, pristine and fiery in its nickel brilliance, remained the gold standard. The doubling was subtle, yet unmistakable under magnification. The strongest points were the base of Monticello's steps, the inscription, E pluribus unum, and the word, States. On the obverse, Jefferson's eye and jawline bore signs of distortion. This wasn't a mechanical error or postmint damage. It was a classic case of doubled hubbing, a rare event in modern minting where a die receives two impressions slightly offset during production. As collectors learned about the coin, its legend grew. One appeared at a small auction in Texas and sold for $8 in 2013. Another, slightly lower grade, fetched $5,700 the following year. By 2018, a gem example crossed the block at over $17,000. Prices continue to climb steadily, buoyed by the scarcity and the increasing respect for Jefferson nickel errors in the modern numismatic landscape. In a twist no one anticipated, a second, more dramatic double-die variety surfaced in late 2020, one that showed doubling not only on Monticello but also prominently in the phrase, "In God We Trust." Though fewer in number, it reignited interest in the 1996 nickels. Coin forums buzzed with speculation. Were there more? How many had gone unnoticed for years? Had the mint accidentally used more than one faulty die that year? Grading services began cataloging both major varieties under the 1996 D Double Die series, with further subvarieties based on die state and strike quality. Collectors scoured mint sets and uncirculated rolls, hoping to strike their own piece of 1996 mystery. Today, those original coins have become legendary within Jefferson nickel circles. The 1996 double die error is no longer a rumor or a whispered possibility. It is a recognized rarity, one that turned an otherwise ordinary year of coinage into a moment of enduring intrigue. And while Martin Brewer still keeps that first coin in his possession, framed in a custom case and labeled with the date he found it, the market has defined its worth far beyond sentiment. Auction records show that high-grade examples now command between $15,000 and $85,000 depending on condition, strike, and clarity of doubling. It is a quiet marvel, a tiny slip of metal that escaped perfection, only to achieve greatness by its very flaw. And for the patient eyes that continue to search through handfuls of change, the 1996 Jefferson nickel stands as a shimmering reminder that history does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes, it whispers from the lines of Monticello. In 1990, the world was caught between the echoes of the Cold War and the dawn of a new technological era. It was a time of transition, of borders redrawn and systems redefined. Yet amid the sweeping changes of history, the familiar hum of the U.S. Mint continued without pause. Coins flowed steadily through presses in Philadelphia and Denver, symbols of stability in an uncertain age. Among them, the Thomas Jefferson nickel, unchanged in its design since 1938, stood as a quiet emblem of American endurance. The obverse carried Jefferson's profile, stern and resolute, while the reverse displayed his neoclassical home, Monticello, etched with timeless precision. To the average American in 1990, the nickel was just another coin, tossed into change jars or slid across counters without a second glance. No one imagined that buried within the billions struck that year was an anomaly, a subtle, nearly invisible error that would go unnoticed for years before emerging as one of the most coveted finds in modern numismatics. It started with a slight shift in the alignment, a mechanical error so minor that even Mint officials failed to detect it. Somewhere during production at the Philadelphia Mint, a die meant to strike Jefferson's familiar image became misaligned by the slimmest of margins. The result was not a glaring mistake. There was no off-center strike or broad strike distortion. Instead, there was doubling, clean, distinct, and striking to those who knew where to look. Years passed before anyone truly noticed. It wasn't until 2004 that a young hobbyist named Owen Ramirez, then a college student studying economics in Ohio, stumbled upon a worn coin on a cafeteria tray. It was a 1990 P. Jefferson nickel, its surfaces dulled by age. Yet something about the word, Liberty, caught Owen's eye. The letters seemed thicker, with soft shadows trailing their edges. Intrigued, he slipped it into his pocket and later placed it under magnification. There it was, a crisp, unmistakable doubling on Liberty and In God We Trust. Not a smudge, not damage from circulation. This was raised metal, cleanly formed, suggesting the error had occurred during the minting process itself. Owen had been a collector since childhood, but this felt different. He submitted the coin for grading. Weeks later, the confirmation came back. 1990p double die obverse, graded MS63. The graders noted significant doubling on the obverse inscriptions, including Jefferson's eye and part of his jawline. What Owen had found wasn't just a fluke, it was a legitimate double die, previously undocumented and strikingly bold for a modern coin. The revelation ignited a small storm in collector circles. While double die errors from earlier decades were well known and cataloged, finding a strong example from 1990 shocked many. Collectors combed through mint sets and circulation rolls, and slowly, other examples began to surface. Most were lower grade, circulated specimens with less dramatic doubling. But a handful of uncirculated coins, likely tucked away in bank rolls and forgotten drawers, showed strong, unambiguous signs of the same error. What made the 1990p double die particularly fascinating was the precision of its flaw. The letters were perfectly formed, yet slightly offset, like a ghost had echoed Jefferson's message. The most dramatic example showed doubling in Liberty, the date, and the left edge of Jefferson's collar. On the reverse, the classic Monticello image remained unchanged, further emphasizing the isolated nature of the error. The community of Jefferson nickel collectors, often overshadowed by Lincoln cents and silver dimes, began to grow in passion and number. The 1990p error became a touchstone, a point of pride for those who devoted themselves to this often underappreciated series. Forums lit up with photos, comparison scans, and tales of accidental discoveries. By 2010, the coin had earned a formal place in error coin catalogs. It was given a distinct designation and began appearing at auction. The earliest auction uncirculated example sold for just under $12,000, surprising even seasoned dealers. But that was just the beginning. As awareness grew and the number of verified specimens remained small, the value surged. Collectors were drawn not just to the error, but to the story it represented. This was a modern coin, struck with high-speed machinery and digital oversight. It wasn't supposed to be flawed. And yet, here was proof that even the most mechanized systems could produce beauty through imperfection. The twist came in 2016 when a pair of matching dies were discovered to have produced an even stronger version of the 1990p error. One collector found two coins from the same bank roll, both showing extreme doubling on Jefferson's nose, eye, and jawline, a feature not visible on earlier specimens. This new variety, now considered the boldest example of the 1990p double die, pushed the envelope even further. A specimen in MS66 full steps was eventually sold privately for an astonishing $97,000. The mint never publicly acknowledged the error. It was assumed that a misalignment during die hubbing had gone unnoticed, and because the coins were not drastically malformed, they passed quality control. No internal investigation was launched. In the eyes of the mint, 1990 was an ordinary year, but for collectors, that year became extraordinary. The 1990p Jefferson nickel with the double die obverse became a symbol of vigilance, a reward for those who still believed that numismatics required eyes, patience, and curiosity. Its value in the marketplace reflects this reverence. While circulated examples with mild doubling may trade for modest sums, certified uncirculated coins with strong doubling now command anywhere between $20,000 and $110,000, depending on strike quality and clarity. The coin itself remains unassuming. It doesn't glint with precious metal or carry a famous mint mark. It won't be found in history textbooks or government archives. But it represents the heart of collecting, discovery, scrutiny, and a refusal to accept that anything, especially a nickel, is ever truly ordinary. In the year 2000, America stood at the edge of a new millennium. There was a cautious optimism in the air. Technology was evolving rapidly, the internet was reshaping daily life, and a sense of transition echoed through society. Yet amidst the digital excitement and futuristic talk, the world of coins remained grounded in tradition. At the United States Mint in Philadelphia, the presses pounded steadily, producing billions of coins that would quietly enter circulation without fanfare. Among them was the Thomas Jefferson nickel, a coin that had looked nearly identical since 1938. With its familiar image of Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello on the reverse, the nickel had become a background character in everyday life. Few people ever looked twice at it. But hidden within that year's production, particularly those struck at the Philadelphia Mint, was a mistake. A subtle error, unannounced and undetected at the time of minting, that would eventually rewrite the reputation of the year 2000 issue and launch it into the crosshairs of the most attentive numismatists. The story didn't begin with a seasoned dealer or a wealthy collector. It began with a high school teacher in North Carolina named Clara Winslow. Clara had a modest coin collection, mostly coins she'd pulled from circulation and kept in small boxes over the years. Her passion wasn't fueled by profit, but by curiosity and a love for American history. One cold January evening in 2011, Clara was sorting through a box of old change she kept on her bookshelf when something peculiar caught her eye. A 2000p Jefferson nickel looked slightly different under her desk lamp. She examined it more closely. Jefferson's profile appeared stretched, as if shadowed. The letters in Liberty and In God We Trust showed signs of doubling. Her hands trembled as she turned the coin under the light again. The effect wasn't caused by wear. It was crisp, distinct, and raised from the planchet. Clara, though far from a professional, had read enough about error coins to suspect what she was seeing. The next day, she mailed it to a grading service. Weeks passed. Then the results arrived. 2000p Jefferson nickel, double die obverse, MS64. It was real. A double die from a modern year, and one previously undocumented. The doubling was prominent on the date, Jefferson's iron collar, and especially clear on the inscription, Liberty. It wasn't the kind of error that could be dismissed as mechanical doubling or postmint damage. This was a classic hub doubling, and it had somehow slipped past the Mint's rigorous quality controls. Word spread quickly after her coin was featured in a regional numismatic journal. Collectors who had long considered the year 2000 nickels boring and overproduced suddenly took a second look. Within months, more examples began to surface. Most were pulled from original mint sets, where the coins had remained untouched for over a decade. But even among these, only a few showed the same strong doubling as Clara's. What made the 2000p double-die Jefferson nickel particularly fascinating was how modern it was. Coin errors from the early 20th century were well documented and even expected due to primitive minting equipment. But by 2000, the Mint had upgraded its machinery, quality inspections were tighter, and errors of this magnitude were considered rare exceptions. This added an element of mystery to the 2000p error. How had it happened, and how many could still be out there? Collectors began digging. Dealer stockpiles, bank rolls, and mint sets were combed through with magnifying glasses and loupes. Most of the double dies found showed mild effects, but a small percentage bore the sharp, definitive markers of a true hub doubling. The strongest examples had Jefferson's eye appearing doubled, the letters of Liberty split, and the date slightly offset. Then came the twist. In 2016, a collector from Michigan discovered a 2000p Jefferson nickel with both a double die obverse and a misaligned reverse die. It was a dual-error coin, an ultra-rare occurrence that sent shockwaves through the error coin community. The reverse design was shifted slightly clockwise, leading to uneven borders and a faint crescent of blank space along the edge. Combined with the already rare double die obverse, the coin represented a minting anomaly of the highest order. This discovery renewed attention on the 2000p issue. Collectors began classifying the varieties more carefully, distinguishing between light doubling, strong doubling, and combinations with other die errors. Grading services recognized the error officially and began documenting new finds and population reports. Auction prices climbed steadily. In 2014, A clean MS-65 example sold quietly for just over $6,000. But by 2018, as awareness grew and certified populations remained low, a high-grade specimen fetched $19,000 in a Florida auction. In 2021, the dual-era piece was sold privately for a rumored $76,000, though the exact figure was never publicly confirmed. Through all this, Clara kept her original find. She had received many offers, including one from a museum collection, but she refused to part with it. For her, the coin represented more than its market value. It was a reminder that the extraordinary often hides in the ordinary, waiting to be noticed. Today, the 2000p Jefferson nickel double die remains one of the most captivating error coins of the modern era. It defies assumptions that only old coins can be valuable, that precision means perfection, and that common years are devoid of intrigue. Its value continues to grow as examples remain scarce and demand increases. Depending on grade and the clarity of the doubling, these coins now trade in the range of $10,000 to $80,000. The strongest examples, those with bold doubling, clean surfaces, and full step designations, are at the top of that spectrum, commanding the attention of elite collectors and major auction houses alike. And yet, most of them began their lives just like Clara's coin did, overlooked, spent, and lost in the shuffle of pocket change. The 2000p Jefferson nickel reminds us that sometimes the greatest treasures don't shine on the surface. They wait quietly for someone to look a little closer.